Hello, Holy Cross. This is Father Robert here, and I have with me Craig McDonald, who is a fairly new member of Holy Cross, and he's going to be leading a very interesting class. And one of the reasons we wanted to make a video was, one, so that you get to see him and hear him talk about this class, but also so that you get to hear a little bit more in depth what this class is and kind of how Craig came up with and developed this class out of not just what he thought was a need, but his own passion for kind of spiritual pilgrimage and journey. So, Craig, I'm going to ask you, what is the structure of this course, and kind of how did you kind of come up with this and develop this?
Well, this has been a time in coming. I taught for close to 35 years at King College, now University up in Bristol. And when I took the job, my chair of the department was a medievalist, and he saw everything in the Middle Ages because of his supervisor through the lens of St. Augustine's Confessions. And in other words, that's how we would interpret literature, because in a way, Augustine's writing the story of his life. And so for about 35 years, once or twice a year, I would read the Confessions with my students. And it was a very powerful experience for me, because as I got older, I began to see my life in terms of what God had done. You know, these moments that seemed to be crystal clear examples of what God had done. And so I had the idea, after I retired about 4 years ago, of going back and revisiting with some of the students who had read the Confessions with me 20-some years ago. Well, you're the age now that Augustine was when he was writing the Confessions, and he's looking back at his own life. What does life look like to you now? In other words, you had expectations when you graduated from college. And where are those expectations now? And where do you see God having worked in your life? And so I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun, as well as instructive, to sit down with these students, and we did it by Zoom over a period of 5 weeks. And we wrote on various topics. I wrote with them about incidents in their lives, organized thematically with family and friendship, loss, the appearance of the unexpected in your life. And it was a really powerful experience for me.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned with St. Augustine is that there's this deep autobiographical nature of his work, the Confessions, and it's really profound in this sense that really, before him, you might say Paul is the only one who dabbles in the autobiographical, right, in the classical world. The classical world isn't per se really interested in my particular life or your particular life, but in the meta question of what does life mean, right? That's the great philosophical questions of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, and the Romans, they're following them. What is virtue? That type of stuff. But it's not really until Augustine comes about in the 4th century, asking that searing question: yes, but what does God want of me? Right. What is my vocation in the light of grace, and how is God working in me and through me, even in those parts of the story of my life that I'm ashamed of?
Right.
How do I reconcile those, bring them to the light, and yes, even see grace where I might have been embarrassed before? And so maybe if you could maybe talk a little bit about maybe your coming to be in light of the journey that Augustine takes all of us on through his Confessions.
Yes. Well, the confession is not only a confession of sin, telling what his sins were, and there is that part of it. He's very, it's not graphic, but he's very honest about the places where he's fallen. But the other thing is, it's a confession of faith, of his having come to faith. And so he's, and yet he doesn't know it at the time. He keeps asking, where is God? Or I don't want to have God. And he keeps making all these decisions that lead him on a literal journey from North Africa his hometown of Tagaste, to Carthage, to Rome, to Milan, and each of those decisions is pretty much governed by his ambition. He wants a better place to teach. He wants better students. He wants a more prestigious job. And in each one of them, he's disappointed. And he discovers later in his life, after he's become a Christian in his 30s, that was God's way of calling me to himself. And so in that sense, then, the Confessions is a story that has a lot of truth for us, because we make decisions sometimes for good reasons or bad reasons. We never would say they're bad reasons, but we look back and say, oh, well, that was a pretty sad reason for making a decision, a life decision. But then we get to the point where we realize, well, in God's economy, you can use those decisions. He can use those decisions, or God can use those decisions to lead us to God's self, to grace.
Absolutely. One of the things that I am fond of saying is that all of our experiences are teaching moments to help us understand how to learn to love. Now, I don't mean love in the concupiscence sort of way that Augustine talks about, but I do mean it in the sense of, how is God loving us? How is our response a response of love? And how do we lead our life out of that response of love? Loving others, loving God, loving ourselves. And instead of marking our life with successes or failures in terms of jobs or status or any of those things, which Augustine ultimately finds to be flat and kind of empty. How do we really become alive with the wisdom of love?
Right. Yeah, that's one of his keys there. He contrasts charity with cupidity, and that our life is God willing, is a movement from the cupidity, loving things in and of themselves, and putting on them the kind of burden that we should be putting on God, and only God can bear, to loving God, and then he would use the term using, but I don't mean in an objective sort of way, but loving the creation as a means to coming to loving God.
Yeah. Well, this is fascinating. I know you're going to help us go deeper into this profound spiritual journey and pilgrimage with our good friend St. Augustine.
Yes. Yeah. This is the book.
That's right. And so I just have a couple practical questions for you, Craig. First of all, how many classes is this going to be?
I did this with my former students, and we did 5 weeks.
All right.
And each week, after the introductory week, it was arranged thematically. So we talked about, we did things like families and what have been our experiences with our families, friendships. The one that I found has been most powerful for me has been the unexpected, things that have come into our lives. And I would say, just kind of tangentially here, this is not about, this is not for super Christians, for those who look back on their lives and they see the Apostle Paul moments on the road to Damascus. The thing that fascinates me about Augustine is, one of my favorite stories is his running across a drunk beggar. And he's on his way to give a speech in honor of the emperor, and he says, I know I'm lying about the emperor in this speech. The audience knows I'm lying about him, and I'm miserable. And here's this drunk beggar on the side of the street who is happier than I have been most of my life. Maybe for a short time, but he's happy. And so what are those experiences in your life? So it's 5 weeks, arranged thematically, and each week I will have a brief set of readings, a few pages that deal with that theme, and then those who are in the class will write something parallel to that, an experience in their life. And it doesn't have to be something where you know now it was absolutely God's hand in it. It may be that you may still be confused about it. But at least what you're doing is you're looking back at your life reflectively and honestly, and sharing that with other folks who, in the context of the group, will first of all respect privacy. Mm-hmm. They'll not try and fix you. That I insist on. They're not critiquing the character of your writing or your experience. All they're there is to listen and maybe to respond. I noticed in what you wrote a certain parallel to what you had written last week. This seems to be an issue with you, and then it gives that person an opportunity to say, "Yeah, that's right. I'm beginning to see some threads here." So that's how the course will be set up.
Well, fantastic, Craig. Yeah. I think that does it for our video today. I want to thank you, Craig, for being here and helping us understand what this class that you've put together is, so that people can decide and choose with some degree of wisdom whether they want to be on this spiritual pilgrimage with you, with Augustine, and with the other brothers and sisters in Christ here who decide to go on this journey. So thank you so much, Craig.
Thank you, Father
I'm
Robert.
really looking forward to having this class. I think it will begin in February, so keep your eyes open, and keep your eyes open to your e-blasts and the bulletins on Sunday morning. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you.